Another thing I wanted to mention about the oddity of this car was the older gentleman that bought this when it was new wanted the biggest 6 he could get, not knowing it was the Sprint 6 option. But he also wanted an automatic, and according to my records that came from PMD, this is very few of them had automatic, but that was back in the day when you could order just about anything you wanted. So it's got what is called a switch pitch 2-speed. It's not a Power Glide. It's a Pontiac Buick Oldsmobile transmission, but it's called a in Buick's name they called it a Dynaflow. Local transmission man got me a modulator for it whenever I first started driving it. It was leaking, and he said that that was a switch pitch 2-speed transmission. It has power steering, but that's about all it has. And the air breather, that's the original air breather that was on it. If you look at some vintage pictures, you'll see that that cover, chrome-plated cover with the louvers around it, is it's got the wrong filter element in it. It makes it higher. Somebody put that high filter element. It's not supposed to have that. But very interesting car. I always thought I'd get around to restore it, and I retired at 71, sold our business, and I've worked on cars for over 50 years. Worked for Chrysler, worked for different, but I worked the longest for myself, and I decided to sell it because I'm never going to get to it. I know I'm not. It's been in this building here for the last over 20 years. I've checked the old title work on it, not whenever I sold it to the man, and I've owned this car for 27 years. And the first 2 years that I had it, in my spare time, I rebuilt the motor and put a new camshaft in it, and I think it has 30 over pistons, maybe 20. And I drove it all one summer back and forth from my home here where this shop is to our big shop that we owned. We used to own the Chevrolet dealership. Well, it had been the Chevrolet dealership, but yeah, I came home with it one day, and it's got a single cylinder, master cylinder on it, so if you break a brake line, you don't have any brakes. And I was coming home and the brakes went out on it, and I drove it home on the parking brake and pulled it inside here in this big building. It has a lift and everything in it, and always thought that one day I'd get the brakes fixed and start driving it again, but it never happened. You folks that are out there that have a car sitting around that you want to do when you retire or someday ends real soon. My wife just passed away just less than a week ago, and never saw that coming. I always thought that maybe I would be the first to go, but it wasn't God's will. But this is what you have when you get a Sprint 6. Most of them are 4 speeds though.